narrative.
I stared at the credit card statement in disbelief, my hands shaking as the numbers blurred before my eyes. This couldn't be right. $5,000 in a single month? The statement was filled with purchases from luxury boutiques, high-end restaurants, and designer stores I'd never even heard of. This wasn't the first time, but it was certainly the worst. When we got married 3 years ago, I thought we had an understanding about finances. We both worked, we both contributed, and major purchases were supposed to be discussed. Yet somehow my credit card had become her personal shopping tool. "Hey, did you see the new painting I got for the living room?" she called from downstairs, her voice cheerful and oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I took a deep breath, trying to compose myself before confronting her. Walking downstairs, I noticed not just a painting, but new throw pillows, a decorative vase, and what appeared to be designer candlesticks. Our living room had transformed into a showcase that we couldn't afford. "We need to talk," I said, holding up the statement. "This has gotten completely out of control." Her smile disappeared, replaced by a defensive glare. "What's the problem? You make good money and I deserve nice things. Besides, that card has your name on it, but we're married. What's yours is mine, right?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This isn't about deserving nice things. It's about responsibility and respect. We can't spend money we don't have on things we don't need. "Don't be so dramatic," she scoffed, waving her hand dismissively. "It's just a credit card. You can pay it off next month." That's when I realized this wasn't just about the money. It was about our fundamentally different views on partnership and responsibility. While I saw marriage as a team effort with shared goals and mutual respect, she seemed to view it as access to my resources without accountability. "This stops now," I said firmly, surprising myself with my resolve. "I'm not just talking about the credit card. I'm talking about this entire attitude that my income is your personal shopping fund." Her expression changed from dismissive to incredulous. "You can't be serious. What am I supposed to do? Ask permission every time I want to buy something? I'm your wife, not your child." "No, you're supposed to be a partner who respects boundaries and contributes to our financial stability," I replied, feeling a strange calm despite the tension in the room. And clearly that's not happening. As she stormed off, muttering about how I was overreacting, I sat down on our new, overpriced couch and began formulating a plan. This wasn't just about cutting up a credit card. This was about reclaiming control of my financial future and establishing the respect that had been missing in our relationship. Little did she know that her shopping spree had just triggered a response that would completely transform our marriage and teach her a lesson about financial responsibility that she wouldn't forget. The tension in our house over the next few days was palpable. She avoided me, making excuses to leave the room whenever I entered. I used this time to dive deeper into our finances, and what I discovered left me cold. This wasn't just a recent spending spree. It was a pattern that had been escalating for months. Credit card statements revealed purchases hidden from me. A $1,200 handbag, monthly spa memberships, designer clothes with tags still attached stuffed in the back of our closet. The total debt across 3 cards had climbed to nearly $23,000. My retirement savings had mysteriously decreased as well, and I now suspected where that money had gone. I confronted her one evening as she returned from yet another shopping trip, bags in hand. "We need to talk. Now." My voice was steady, despite the anger building inside. "Not this again," she sighed dramatically, dropping her bags by the door. "I just bought a few necessities." I placed the stack of statements on the kitchen table. $23,000 in credit card debt is not a few necessities. And did you really think I wouldn't notice the withdrawals from my retirement account? Her face flushed, first with embarrassment, then quickly shifting to indignation. "Look, I've supported your career for years. I've stood by you, hosted your work parties, dressed the part of the perfect wife. I deserve compensation for that." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Compensation? This isn't a business transaction. It's supposed to be a partnership. And you didn't support my career. You enjoyed the lifestyle it provided while contributing nothing financially. Nothing. You think being your wife is nothing? Do you know how many women would love to have someone like me on their arm? "I'm an asset," she shouted, her voice rising with each word. "An asset doesn't drain your bank account," I replied calmly, which only infuriated her more. So what now? You want a divorce because I bought some clothes? You're pathetic. She was deflecting, a tactic I'd seen countless times before. No, what I want is respect and responsibility. Starting tomorrow, things are going to change around here. I'm cutting off all joint credit cards, creating separate accounts, and you're going to start contributing to this household financially. She laughed, actually laughed in my face. Good luck with that. My name is on those accounts too. And what makes you think I'll get a job just because you're having a midlife crisis over a few purchases? Her dismissive attitude confirmed what I needed to know. She had no intention of changing, no recognition of the damage she'd done, and no respect for me or our future together. In that moment, something shifted inside me. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about taking back control of my life from someone who saw me as nothing more than an ATM. We'll see about that, I said quietly, reaching for my phone. The plan forming in my mind would change everything between us. And while part of me felt guilty for what was coming, a stronger part knew it was necessary. She had pushed me to this point, and now she would face the consequences of her actions. The next morning, I took a personal day from work and made 3 important appointments: a financial advisor, a lawyer, and my bank. I needed expert guidance to navigate the mess my finances had become. The financial advisor was blunt. "This is financial infidelity," she said, reviewing the statements I'd brought. "And it's more common than you think. But you need to act quickly before this spirals further." She helped me create a comprehensive plan to regain control of my finances. The lawyer advised me on my legal options, explaining that while we were married, I could still protect my assets going forward. At the bank, I opened a new personal account and transferred my direct deposits there. When I returned home that evening, I found her lounging on the couch, shopping online on her laptop. She barely looked up when I entered. "I got a call from the credit card company today," she said casually. "They said there was some kind of fraud alert. I told them everything was fine. You didn't have anything to do with that, did you?" "It wasn't fraud," I replied. "I called them and explained that I wouldn't be authorizing any more purchases on those cards. They're being canceled as we speak." She slammed her laptop shut. "You did what? You can't do that." "Actually, I can. The primary accounts are in my name. You're just an authorized user." Her face contorted with rage. "This is ridiculous. What am I supposed to use for shopping, for groceries, for basic necessities?" I placed an envelope on the coffee table. "This is a prepaid card with a reasonable monthly allowance. You can use it for necessities until you find a job and start earning your own income." She stared at the envelope as if it were a snake about to strike. "An allowance, like I'm some child? This is insane." "What's insane is draining our savings for luxury items we don't need. What's insane is jeopardizing our financial future because you feel entitled to unlimited spending." "I'll just use the emergency credit card in my wallet," she threatened. "That's been canceled too. All of them have." Her confidence began to crack. "My parents will help me. They're aware of the situation," I interrupted. "I spoke with your father today. He agrees this has gotten out of hand." That hit her hard. Her parents were financially responsible people who had raised her with good values. Somewhere along the way, she'd abandoned those principles. "You involved my family?" Her voice was quiet now, trembling with anger and embarrassment. "I didn't want to, but this affects them too. If we lose our house because of your spending, where do you think we'd end up? Living with them." She fell silent, the reality of the situation finally beginning to sink in. Then with newfound determination, she grabbed her purse. "Fine, if this is how you want to play it, you'll regret it. I'm going out." "With what money?" I asked calmly. She opened her wallet, checked her phone banking app, and the color drained from her face as she realized all her financial lifelines had been cut. Her shoulders slumped in defeat as the full impact of her actions and their consequences finally hit home. "This isn't over," she whispered, but the threat sounded hollow even to her own ears. She didn't realize that I was just getting started. A week passed in tense silence. She tried everything: tears, accusations, seduction, threats of leaving, but I remained unmoved. My resolve had hardened into something unbreakable. Years of financial manipulation had vaccinated me against her emotional tactics. She made one desperate attempt to regain control. I discovered she had applied for a new credit card using our joint information. Fortunately, my credit freeze prevented it, but her attempt confirmed I'd made the right decision. "I need to talk to you," I said, finding her sulking in the kitchen, staring at her empty coffee cup. "I know about the credit card application." Her eyes widened briefly before narrowing. "You're monitoring me now?" "I'm protecting myself," I corrected, "and that application was the last straw. I've made an appointment with a divorce attorney." The word divorce hung in the air between us. I hadn't planned to say it, but once spoken, I knew it was the right path forward. "You can't be serious," she whispered, genuine fear replacing her usual bravado. "Over money? You'd throw away our marriage over money?" "Not over money," I clarified. "Over respect, over trust, over partnership. All the things that should be the foundation of a marriage, but are missing from ours." She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "Please," she said, her voice cracking. "I'll change. I'll get a job. I'll do whatever you want." "That's exactly the problem," I replied. "You'll do what I want when backed into a corner, but you've shown who you really are. You see me as a resource to exploit, not a partner to respect." The next day, I received a call from a debt collection agency. They were pursuing a $15,000 debt on a store credit card I knew nothing about. She had somehow opened it in my name months ago. When confronted, she broke down completely. "I needed things for myself. You were always working, never noticing me. Shopping was the only thing that made me feel valued." For the first time, I saw past my anger to the broken person beneath. This wasn't justification, but it was explanation. Still, understanding her pain didn't erase the damage done. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, my voice firm but not unkind. "The divorce proceedings will continue. The debt you accumulated in my name will be transferred to you. You have 2 weeks to find a job and an apartment." "But where will I go? How will I live?" The panic in her voice was real. "You'll do what millions of adults do every day. You'll support yourself. You'll learn the value of money by earning it yourself." I placed a folder on the table. "This contains information on 3 job openings that match your qualifications, apartment listings within your potential budget, and the number of a financial counselor. This is more help than you deserve, but I'm offering it anyway." She stared at the folder, then at me, finally seeing the consequence of years of financial abuse. "I never thought it would end like this," she whispered. "Neither did I replied honestly. "But unlike you, I'm prepared for what comes next." As I walked away, I felt a weight lifting. The road ahead would be difficult, rebuilding my credit, paying off debts, starting over. But for the first time in years, I was in control of my financial destiny. And that was worth more than any credit card could buy. 6 months had passed since our separation. The divorce was finalized, settlements reached, and debts allocated. The financial damage was substantial, but at least it had stopped growing. I'd sold our oversized house and downsized to a comfortable apartment, accelerating my debt repayment plan. I was leaving my office one evening when I spotted her sitting on a bench across the street. She looked different. Simpler clothes, no designer handbag, hair pulled back practically instead of professionally styled. After a moment's hesitation, I walked over. "Mind if I sit?" I asked. She looked up, surprised. "Please do." An awkward silence hung between us before she spoke. "I got your final settlement payment. Thank you for being fair about everything." "It wasn't about punishment," I replied. "It was about responsibility." She nodded, fidgeting with the sleeve of her jacket. "I've been working at Westside Marketing for 4 months now. Assistant position, but there's room for growth." "That's good," I said, genuinely pleased. "How's the apartment working out?" "It's small but functional. Nothing like what we had, but..." She trailed off. "It's what I can afford on my salary. I'm learning to live within my means." The transformation was remarkable. The entitled woman who once scoffed at budgets was gone, replaced by someone who understood the value of financial independence. "I've been seeing a therapist," she continued. "Turns out I have some issues with validation and self-worth. Shopping was filling an emotional void. Not that it excuses what I did to you." "No, it doesn't," I agreed. But understanding the why is important for moving forward. She looked at me directly for the first time. I'm sorry, truly sorry, not just for the money, but for betraying your trust, for not seeing you as a partner, for thinking I was entitled to whatever I wanted without consequence. Her apology seemed genuine, coming from a place of self-reflection rather than manipulation. The difference was subtle but unmistakable. Thank you for saying that, I replied. It means more than you might think. We sat in silence for a moment, watching the evening traffic. She was the first to stand. I should go. I have an online financial literacy course at 7, she smiled wryly. Never thought I'd voluntarily take a class on budgeting. But here we are. As she turned to leave, I called after her. I'm proud of you, you know. Not many people can change the way you have. I had good motivation, she replied. Hitting rock bottom has a way of clarifying things. Watching her walk away, I felt a complex mixture of emotions. Regret for what might have been, satisfaction at the resolution, and pride in my own strength. The experience had changed us both, forcing growth neither of us had anticipated. Later that night, reviewing my now solvent bank accounts, I realized the most valuable thing I'd gained wasn't financial security, but self-respect. I'd stood up for myself, set boundaries, and refused to enable destructive behavior, even when it was difficult. My credit card was no longer her human right. It was once again what it should have always been, a financial tool I controlled, not a weapon that could be used against me. I had reclaimed my financial autonomy, and with it, my future. Sometimes the most important investment isn't in stocks or property, but in respecting yourself enough to walk away from toxic entitlement. It was a harsh lesson for both of us, but ultimately, the most valuable one we could have learned. Our story has come to an end. If you've made it this far, how about subscribing to our channel? It helps us immensely. I've selected 2 other videos for you that I'm sure you'll enjoy. Feel free to click on them. I'll be waiting for you in the next story. See you soon.
Narrative.
During counseling, my wife said everyone says she's too good for me. I looked at the therapist, then back at her, and said everyone's right. The session ended right there. Let me back up for a second. We'd been married for 6 years. 6 years of me trying to be enough for someone who made it clear I never would be. She came from money. Her dad owned a consulting firm. Her mom did charity events. Me? I worked in logistics management, pulled in around 60 grand a year. Not rich, but stable. Enough to handle bills, save a little, live comfortably. That was never enough for her. The criticism started small. Comments about my job being just okay compared to her friends' husbands who were in finance or tech. Jokes about how I preferred staying in on weekends instead of hitting up expensive bars downtown. Little digs about my truck being 10 years old while her friend's husband just leased a new SUV. I brushed it off at first. Figured every marriage had some friction, but it got worse. At her company holiday party last December, she introduced me to her co-workers with, "This is my husband. He does logistics stuff." The way she said it, like she was apologizing for my existence. One of her colleagues asked what I did exactly, and before I could answer, she jumped in with, "It's complicated. Basically warehouse management. I managed supply chains for a mid-sized company. It wasn't glamorous, but it sure as hell wasn't warehouse management." I corrected her calmly. She laughed it off like I was being sensitive. That became the pattern. Every social event, every dinner with her family, every interaction with her friend group, she found ways to diminish me. Her father, who'd never liked me from day one, would ask pointed questions about my career trajectory over Sunday dinners. Her mother would make comments about how different our backgrounds were, always with this sympathetic smile like she felt sorry for her daughter. And my wife? She'd just sit there. Sometimes she'd even pile on. 3 months ago, things escalated. We were at a backyard barbecue at her friend's place. Nice house, pool, the whole setup. I was talking to another guy about football when my wife walked over with 2 of her friends. One of them, loud enough for the group to hear, said, "You're so patient with him." My wife laughed and responded, "Someone has to be." I didn't react. Not there. But that night, driving home, I asked her what that was about. She acted confused, said I was reading too much into a joke. When I pressed, she got defensive. Maybe if you were more ambitious, people wouldn't see you as a project. A project? That's what I was to her. 2 weeks later, she suggested couples therapy. Framed it like she was doing me a favor. I think it would help you understand how your attitude affects our marriage. Not our issues. My attitude. I agreed anyway. Figured maybe a neutral third party would help her see what she was doing. First session, the therapist asked us what brought us in. My wife went first. Talked for 20 minutes about how I wasn't emotionally available, how I didn't support her social life, how I made her feel stuck. The therapist took notes, nodded along. Then she turned to me. I kept it simple. I think my wife views me as beneath her, and I'm tired of trying to prove otherwise. My wife scoffed. That's not fair. The therapist asked her to elaborate on why she felt I wasn't supportive. That's when she started listing everything. How I didn't network enough, didn't care about advancing my career, didn't make an effort with her friends. Everyone keeps telling me I could do better, and I keep defending him. But maybe they're right. The room went quiet. The therapist looked uncomfortable. I just sat there, processing what I'd just heard. My wife seemed to realize what she'd said and try to backtrack. I mean, I don't think that, but other people. I cut her off. Everyone says you're too good for me. She hesitated. Some people have mentioned. So everyone's right. Her face went pale. The therapist leaned forward, trying to de-escalate. Let's take a moment, and I stood up. We're done here. My wife started to say something, but I was already at the door. The therapist called after me, asking if we could continue next week. I didn't answer, just walked out, got in my truck, and drove home. On the drive back, I wasn't angry. I wasn't hurt. I was clear. For the first time in years, everything made sense. She'd spent our entire marriage making me feel like I wasn't enough, and now she'd finally said it out loud. In front of a therapist. On record. I got home and looked around. The house we lived in, I'd bought it 2 years before we met. The furniture? Half of it was mine from my old place. The savings account? Mostly my contributions since she spent her salary on boutique gym memberships and weekend trips with her friends. I pulled out my phone and called a buddy who practiced family law. He picked up on the second ring. Need a consultation? I said. Tomorrow if you're free. He asked if everything was okay. I told him I'd explain in person. We set a time for the next afternoon. Then I went to the garage and found my toolbox. Took me about an hour to swap out the locks on both doors, front and back. I labeled a set of keys for myself and left the old ones on the kitchen counter. Next, I grabbed storage bins from the basement and started packing her stuff. Not everything, just essentials. Clothes, toiletries, her laptop, chargers. I wasn't trying to be petty, just efficient. Stacked the bins neatly in the garage. I sat down at the kitchen table and wrote a note on a piece of notebook paper. Kept it short. Be too good for someone else. Taped it to the outside of the front door where she'd see it immediately. By the time I finished, it was almost 7. I ordered a burger through DoorDash, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and waited. She'd be home soon, expecting me to be apologetic, ready to grovel. She'd expect me to beg her to stay, to promise I'd change, to prove I was worth keeping around. She was going to be very, very wrong. She got home around 8:30. I heard the car pull into the driveway, heard her footsteps on the walkway, then silence. She was trying her key. Once, twice, 3 times. I stayed on the couch, beer in hand, watching the door. The knocking started soft, then got louder. Hello? Are you in there? My key isn't working. I took another sip and waited. Seriously? Open the door. Her voice had that edge to it, the one she used when she was annoyed but still trying to sound reasonable. I know you're upset about earlier, but this is ridiculous. Let me in so we can talk. I stood up, walked to the door and opened it. She was holding her purse and phone, looking frustrated and confused at the same time. Her eyes went straight to the note, still taped at eye level. She ripped it off and read it. What is this supposed to mean? I pointed to the garage. Your stuff's in there. Essentials for now. You can arrange to pick up the rest later this week. She stared at me like I'd just spoken another language. You're joking. Not even a little. You can't just lock me out of my own house. My house, I corrected. Bought it before we met. Title's in my name. You can check the county records if you want. Her face went red. You're doing this because of what I said in therapy? I was venting. People vent. You said everyone thinks you're too good for me. I agreed. Now you're free to find someone who meets your standards. She tried a different approach, softening her voice. Look, I know I've been hard on you lately. I've been stressed with work and maybe I took it out on you. But we can fix this. We can go back to therapy, work through it. There's nothing to fix. You made your feelings pretty clear. I didn't mean it like that. Yes, you did. I kept my tone even, matter of fact. You've spent years making little comments, criticizing everything I do, comparing me to other people. Today you just finally said it out loud. So now we're done pretending. She switched tactics again, this time angry. So that's it. You're just giving up? What kind of man does that? The kind who's tired of being treated like he's not good enough. You wanted better, go find it. Her phone started buzzing. She ignored it and stepped closer, voice rising. You don't get to make this decision alone. We're married. You can't just decide it's over. I can and I did. You should probably find somewhere to stay tonight. Your parents' place isn't far. I'm not going to my parents. Then a hotel, friend's couch, wherever. But you're not staying here. The phone kept buzzing. She finally looked at it, and her expression changed. The therapist is calling. You should answer that. She hesitated, then swiped to accept. I couldn't hear the other end, but I could tell from her responses it wasn't going well. No, he locked me out. Yes, I'm serious. I don't know. Can you talk to him? She held the phone out to me. I took it. Hello. The therapist sounded genuinely concerned. I want to make sure everyone's okay. Your wife says you've locked her out of the house. That's correct. I understand today's session was difficult, but this seems like an extreme reaction. Would you be willing to come back in so we can work through this together? There's nothing to work through. The marriage is over. You can keep the session fee. Consider it payment for clarity. I really think if you both. Have a good night. I hung up and handed the phone back. She looked at me like she didn't recognize me. Who are you right now? Same person I've always been. You just never paid attention. My phone started ringing. Her father. I declined the call. It rang again immediately. I declined again and turned it off completely. She stood there for another minute, clearly expecting me to cave, to apologize, to let her back in. When I didn't move, she finally grabbed the note, crumpled it up, and threw it at me. You're going to regret this. Maybe, but I doubt it. She turned and walked to her car, yanked the door open, and sat inside for a solid 5 minutes. I could see her through the windshield, phone pressed to her ear, probably calling one of her friends. Eventually, she started the engine and backed out. I watched her taillights disappear down the street, then closed the door and locked it. Walked back to the couch, picked up my beer, and turned on a baseball game. My phone stayed off for the rest of the night. I knew what was waiting for me when I turned it back on. Voicemails and texts from her family, probably her friends too. They'd all have opinions about what kind of man I was, how I handled things, what I should have done differently. I didn't care. The next morning, I woke up early, made coffee, and turned my phone back on. 23 missed calls, 15 voicemails, 38 texts. I skimmed through them. Her father, her mother, her brother, 3 of her friends. All variations of the same message. How could I do this? What was I thinking? I needed to fix this immediately. I deleted all of it without responding and called my buddy the lawyer. He answered on the first ring. So he said, "We doing this?" "Yeah, we're doing this." We met at his office that afternoon. He walked me through the process, what to expect, how long it would take. Asked about assets, property, joint accounts. I had everything documented. The house was mine free and clear. We had one joint savings account with about 12 grand in it. Her car was in her name, mine and mine. No kids, no complicated custody arrangements. This should be pretty straightforward, he said. Might take a few months to finalize, but nothing here screams major dispute. Good. He leaned back in his chair. Can I ask what happened? I gave him the short version. The years of criticism, the therapy session, her comment about everyone thinking she was too good for me. He shook his head. And you just walked out? And changed the locks. He laughed despite himself. That's cold, man. She wanted better. I'm helping her find it. Well, I'll get the paperwork started. In the meantime, don't engage with her directly. Everything goes through me now. If she shows up at your house, don't answer the door. If she calls, don't pick up. Keep everything documented. I nodded, already planning on it. And for what it's worth. He stood and extended his hand. About time you stood up for yourself. I shook it, thanked him, and left. On the drive home, I stopped at Home Depot and picked up a simple security camera for the front door. 20 minutes to install, synced to my phone. If she showed up again, I'd have a record of it. By the time I got back, the sun was setting. I grabbed a Coke from the fridge, sat on the back porch, and looked at the yard. Needed mowing. Fence could use a fresh coat of stain. Small projects I'd been putting off while trying to keep the peace at home. I pulled out my phone and opened a notes app. Started a list. Fix the fence. Clean out the garage. Replace the ceiling fan in the bedroom. Simple stuff, easy fixes. It felt good to plan again. To think about what I wanted instead of what would make her happy. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Probably one of her friends using a different phone. I didn't open it. Just added the number to my block list and went back to my notes. The house was quiet. Peaceful even. No passive-aggressive comments about what I was watching on TV. No sighing when I opened a beer. No lectures about networking events I should be attending. Just quiet. And for the first time in years, that felt exactly right. The next 3 days were a circus. She tried everything. The first morning after I locked her out, she showed up at 6 a.m. banging on the door. I watched her on the camera app, still in bed, and didn't get up. She yelled for 10 minutes before giving up and leaving. That afternoon, her mother called from a different number. I answered without thinking. You need to stop this nonsense and let her come home. She started, no greeting, no pleasantries. I don't know what's gotten into you, but this is not how adults handle disagreements. With respect, this isn't a disagreement. The marriage is over. Over? Because of one comment? You're being incredibly immature. One comment. I kept my voice level. She spent 6 years making me feel like I'm not enough. That one comment was just her finally being honest about it. She was upset. People say things they don't mean when they're emotional. She meant it, and I'm done pretending she didn't. Her father wants to speak with you. I'm sure he does. There was muffled conversation on her end. Then her father's voice came through, sharp and authoritative. The same tone he used when he wanted to intimidate people in business meetings. Listen carefully. You're going to unlock that door. You're going to apologize to my daughter, and you're going to fix whatever tantrum you're throwing. No, I'm not. Excuse me. I said no. The marriage is over. My attorney will be in touch about the divorce proceedings. You arrogant little, he caught himself. You have no idea what you're doing. I will make your life very difficult if you continue down this path. Feel free to try. Have a good day. I hung up. He called back twice. I sent both calls to voicemail. Then I blocked the number. That evening, she showed up again, this time with 2 of her friends. I watched through the camera as they stood on the porch, the friends clearly there for moral support. One of them knocked while she stood back, arms crossed. I opened the door, but kept the screen locked. Can I help you? The friend who knocked spoke first. We're just here to pick up some more of her things. Can we come in? No. Everything she needs is already packed in the garage. If there's something specific missing, text me a list and I'll add it to the boxes. My wife stepped forward. This is insane. You can't just keep me out of my own house. We've been over this. Not your house. Her other friend chimed in, trying to sound sympathetic. Look, we get that you're upset, but don't you think you're taking this a bit too far? She's willing to talk, to work things out. There's nothing to work out. My wife's voice cracked. Please, can we just talk? Just the 2 of us. We did talk. In therapy, you made your position clear. I didn't mean it the way it came out. Yes, you did. And that's fine. You're entitled to your feelings. But I'm also entitled to walk away. One of her friends looked at me like I was something she scraped off her shoe. You know everyone's talking about this, right? About how you're acting. It's not a good look. I'll survive. They stood there for another minute, probably waiting for me to crack. When I didn't, my wife started crying. Not the quiet kind, the loud kind designed for an audience. Her friends immediately moved to comfort her, shooting me disgusted looks. I closed the door and went back inside. My phone blew up after that. Screenshots started circulating in our social circle. She'd posted something vague on social media about betrayal and discovering who people really are. The comments section was full of her friends offering support, calling me controlling, saying she deserved better. I didn't respond, didn't post anything, just let her control whatever narrative she wanted. The people who mattered already knew the real story. 2 of those people reached out directly. One was a guy I played basketball with sometimes, someone we'd both known for years. He texted, heard what happened. About time, man. She talked down to you constantly. Everyone saw it. The other was a woman from her company, someone who'd been at that holiday party where she'd dismissed my job. She sent a longer message. I don't usually get involved in personal drama, but I wanted you to know that a lot of us noticed how she treated you. It wasn't okay. Good luck with everything. I thanked them both and left it at that. On day 4, she tried a different approach. Showed up during my lunch break at a diner I went to sometimes. Sat down across from me without asking, looking exhausted and desperate. We need to talk. I kept eating my sandwich. No, we don't. 5 minutes. Please. I looked at her, really looked at her. The confidence was gone. The superiority. She looked small, defeated. Part of me felt bad. A small part. The rest remembered 6 years of being made to feel inadequate. You have until I finish eating. She took a breath. I know I messed up. I know I took you for granted. I know I said things I shouldn't have. But we've been together for 6 years. That has to count for something. It did. Past tense. I can change. I will change. I'll prove it to you. You shouldn't have to prove basic respect. That should have been a given from the start. Everyone makes mistakes. This wasn't a mistake. This was a pattern. You didn't slip up once. You spent years making me feel like I wasn't good enough. And the worst part? I started believing it. Started thinking maybe I should be doing more, earning more, being more. Took me way too long to realize the problem wasn't me. She reached across the table like she was going to grab my hand. I pulled back. Don't. I love you. No, you don't. You love the idea of fixing me, of molding me into something impressive you could show off. But you never loved me as I actually am. That's not true. Then why did you tell a therapist that everyone thinks you're too good for me? Why did you agree with them? She didn't have an answer for that. Opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. Nothing came out. I finished my sandwich, dropped cash on the table for the check, and stood up. Lose my number. Find someone who impresses you. We're done. I left her sitting there. Didn't look back. When I got home that evening, there was a car I didn't recognize in my driveway. My wife was in the passenger seat. The driver got out as I pulled up. Older guy in an expensive suit. Had to be her father. I parked on the street and walked toward them. He met me halfway, trying to use his height to intimidate. He had maybe 2 inches on me. We need to discuss the house, he said, no preamble. There's nothing to discuss. My daughter has rights. Actually, she doesn't. The house was purchased before the marriage, titles solely in my name, and we're in a state where that matters. Your daughter has rights to half of our joint savings. That's about it. He smiled, the kind that didn't reach his eyes. I have lawyers who would disagree. Then have them call mine. I pulled out my phone and showed him my attorney's contact info. Feel free to pass that along. His smile dropped. You're making a mistake. Your daughter made the mistake when she spent years treating me like I was beneath her. I'm just correcting course. If you think you're going to walk away from this with everything, you're delusional. I'm walking away with what's mine. She can keep what's hers. It's pretty simple math. He stepped closer, voice dropping. I can make things very difficult for you professionally. How? You going to call my boss and tell him I'm divorcing your daughter? I'm sure that'll go over well. He didn't have a response to that. Just stared at me, probably not used to people pushing back. You should leave, I said. This is private property and you're not welcome here. He held eye contact for another few seconds, then turned and walked back to the car. My wife was watching through the windshield, face unreadable. They backed out and left. I went inside, locked the door, and pulled up my attorney's number. They sent her father over, I said when he answered. What happened? I gave him the summary. He laughed. Good. Keep records of everything. If they keep showing up, we might need to get a restraining order. Hopefully it won't come to that. Probably won't. Most people back off once they realize they can't bully you into compliance. You're doing fine. Just stay the course. I thanked him and hung up. Looked around the house again. Still quiet. Still peaceful. And still mine. A week passed. She went quiet on the direct approaches, but the social media campaign ramped up. More vague posts about narcissists and emotional abuse. About discovering someone's true colors. About choosing yourself when others won't choose you. Her friends ate it up. Comments flooded in with heart emojis and "you deserve better" and his lost messages. She was painting herself as the victim, and to people who didn't know the full story, it probably looked convincing. Then something unexpected happened. A mutual friend, someone I'd known since college, commented on one of her posts. Just 4 words. Tell the whole story. She deleted it within minutes, but the damage was done. Other people had seen it. Questions started appearing in the comments. What actually happened? And is there more to this? She stopped posting after that. 2 days later, I ran into that same friend at the gym. He was on the treadmill next to mine. Saw your comment, I said, keeping my eyes forward. Yeah, well, someone had to say it. She's been playing victim all week, and it's garbage. Appreciate it, but you didn't have to get involved. Man, we've all watched her treat you like you weren't worth her time for years. At your birthday dinner last year, she spent the whole night on her phone texting her friends instead of talking to anyone at the table. Remember that? I did. She'd claimed she was dealing with a work crisis. Turned out she was planning a girl's trip to Miami. Everyone noticed, he continued. We just didn't say anything because it wasn't our place. But now she's trying to flip the script? Nah, people aren't as stupid as she thinks. That afternoon, another friend texted. A woman who worked with my wife, the same one who'd messaged me earlier. Can I buy you a coffee? Need to tell you something. We met at a Starbucks near her office. She looked uncomfortable. So, your wife's been talking at work, she started. Saying you were controlling, that you isolated her from friends, that you had anger issues. I nodded. Expected as much. Thing is, some of us have been comparing notes. Turns out she's been telling different versions of events to different people. Told one person you cheated. Told another you were financially abusive. The stories don't line up. She's scrambling. Yeah, and people are noticing. Her boss pulled her aside yesterday because it's becoming a distraction. Apparently, she broke down crying in a meeting about a quarterly report. That's not my problem anymore. I know. I just thought you should be aware in case she tries to escalate things. When people like her start losing control of the narrative, they get desperate. She was right. That evening, I got a call from the therapist again. Different tone this time. Less mediation and more concern. I wanted to reach out because your wife came to see me today for an individual session, she said. She's struggling quite a bit with the separation. Okay. She mentioned she wants to try to salvage things. That she's willing to do the work. That's between her and whoever she ends up with next. I'm not interested. I understand this has been painful, but sometimes people need a wake-up call to recognize their behaviors. This might be that moment for her. Maybe. But that doesn't mean I'm obligated to stick around and see if it takes. There was a pause. You seem very certain about this decision. I am. Most people in your situation would at least consider reconciliation if their partner is willing to change. Most people didn't spend 6 years being told they weren't enough. I did, and I'm not going back to that. Change or no change. She sighed. I can't force you to reconsider, but I do think there's value in processing this together rather than just cutting ties. We processed it. In our session, when she told me everyone thinks she's too good for me, that was all the processing I needed. That was said in a moment of frustration. No, it was said in a moment of honesty. She finally stopped pretending and said what she'd been thinking for years. I'm just accepting the truth of it and moving on. The therapist tried once more to convince me to come back for closure, but I politely declined and ended the call. Blocked that number too. The weekend came and I focused on the house projects I'd been planning. Painted the fence Saturday morning, mowed the lawn in the afternoon. Sunday I tackled the garage, reorganizing tools and throwing out junk that had been piling up for years. A neighbor I barely knew, older guy who lived 3 houses down, walked over while I was working. Heard you're going through a divorce, he said, no judgment in his tone. Wife told me. Seemed pretty upset about it. Yeah, we're done. He nodded slowly. She came by asking if I'd seen you with anyone else. Trying to figure out if there was someone new in the picture. There isn't. That's what I told her. Also told her she should probably stop going door to door asking neighbors about your business. Doesn't look good. I stopped what I was doing and looked at him. She's canvassing the neighborhood. Hit up 4 houses yesterday that I know of. Asking questions, trying to get dirt. Most people told her to leave them alone. Appreciate the heads up. For what it's worth. He glanced back at his own house. My wife and I always thought she was a bit much. Too focused on status, you know? You seem better off without that energy. He helped me finish organizing the garage. Didn't ask for anything in return, just wanted to help. When we finished, he shook my hand and went back home. That night, I ordered pizza and watched a game. Phone stayed mostly quiet except for one text from an unknown number. You're going to regret this when you realize what you lost. I deleted it without responding. Monday at work. Things were normal until my boss called me into his office. I assumed it was about the quarterly logistics review. Instead, he closed the door and sat down across from me. Got a weird call this morning, he said. Woman claiming to be your wife said you were having performance issues at work and might need some time off. My stomach dropped. That didn't happen. I know. Check your file. You're solid across the board. No performance issues whatsoever. Just wanted to give you a heads up that someone's trying to mess with your employment. She's getting desperate. Yeah, well, it didn't work. But you might want to get ahead of whatever's happening before she tries something else. I thanked him and went back to my desk. Called my attorney immediately. She contacted my employer. I said, tried to claim I had performance issues. Did she succeed? No, but she tried. That's harassment. Document everything. Date, time, what was said. If she does it again, we file for a restraining order. Understood. In the meantime, I'm going to send her a cease and desist. Make it clear that any further contact with you, your employer, or attempts to damage your reputation will have legal consequences. 2 days later, her attorney finally made contact. Professional email, no drama, just a request to discuss asset division. My attorney scheduled a meeting. We met at his office the following week. Her lawyer was sharp, mid-40s, carried herself like she'd seen it all. My wife wasn't there, which was probably for the best. The meeting lasted an hour. Her attorney pushed for more than half the savings, claimed my wife had contributed to the household in non-financial ways that deserved compensation. My attorney countered with records showing she'd spent more than she contributed, that the house was solely mine, and that we had a clean division already on the table. Eventually, her attorney backed down. My client is willing to accept the 50-50 split of the savings and forego any claim to the house, provided the divorce is finalized quickly. That works, my attorney said. They hammered out the details. 60 days to finalize everything. No alimony, no ongoing obligations, clean break. When it was done, her attorney looked at me directly. Can I ask you something off the record? I nodded. What did she do to make you walk away this decisively? In my experience, people don't usually give up this quickly. She didn't value me, I said simply, and I got tired of trying to convince her she should. She nodded slowly, like that explained everything. Fair enough. I left that meeting feeling lighter. It was almost over. Just paperwork and waiting now. That evening, I met up with some friends at a bar. First time in months I'd gone out socially. They asked how I was holding up. Honestly, better than I've been in years. One of them raised his glass to knowing when to walk away. We all drank to that, and for the first time since the therapy session, I actually smiled. 3 weeks into the process, she made one last attempt. Showed up at the diner again during lunch. I saw her walk in and considered leaving, but decided to stay put. Running wouldn't solve anything. She slid into the booth across from me. Looked different. Hair pulled back, no makeup, sweatshirt instead of her usual designer clothes. Trying to look vulnerable, probably. I know you don't want to talk to me, she started. You're right. Just hear me out. Please. I put my fork down and waited. I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about how I made you feel. And you were right. I did take you for granted. I did criticize you constantly. I was wrong. Okay. So can we try again? Start over? No. Her face fell. Why not? I'm admitting I was wrong. I'm willing to change. Because I don't want to. It's that simple. But we were good together once. We can get back to that. We were never good together. I was just too focused on trying to make you happy to notice how unhappy I was. She tried a different angle. What about all the time we invested? 6 years. That has to mean something. It means I spent 6 years learning what I don't want. Lesson learned. Moving on. So you're just going to throw away everything we built? We didn't build anything. I built a life, and you spent 6 years telling me it wasn't impressive enough. She sat there for a minute, looking like she might cry. I didn't feel bad anymore. Just tired. I can't believe you're being this cold. I'm not being cold. I'm being clear. You wanted someone better. Now you're free to find them. That's not what I want. It was 3 weeks ago in that therapy office. She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. Nothing came out that time either. I stood up, dropped cash on the table. The lawyers will handle the rest. Don't contact me again. I walked out. She didn't follow. That was the last time I saw her outside of legal proceedings. Her attorney called mine 2 days later. She was ready to sign everything. No more negotiations, no more delays. Just wanted it done. For weeks later, I sat in a conference room signing the final papers. She wasn't there, had signed her copies remotely. My attorney slid the documents across the table. That's it, he said. You're officially divorced. I signed the last page, dated it, and pushed it back. Felt like I should feel something. Relief, sadness, anger. Instead, I just felt normal. How do you feel? He asked. Like I should have done this a long time ago. He smiled. Most people say that. I left his office and drove home. Stopped at a gas station on the way, grabbed a Coke and some chips. Sat in the parking lot for a minute, just thinking. 6 years. Gone. And I didn't regret a single second of walking away. My phone buzzed. Text from the friend who'd called her out on social media. Heard it's official. Drinks tonight. I replied yes and pulled back onto the road. Life was moving forward. Simple as that. When I got home, I walked through the house. Everything was exactly where I wanted it. No tension, no criticism, no feeling like I had to prove myself. I grabbed a beer from the fridge, sat on the back porch, and looked at the yard. Fence looked good. Grass was trimmed. Everything in order. For the first time in 6 years, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. And that was enough. 2 months after the divorce finalized, I ran into the therapist at Target. She was in the checkout line ahead of me, didn't notice me until I stepped up behind her. "Oh," she said, recognition crossing her face. "Hello. Hey." We did the awkward small talk thing while her items scanned. When she grabbed her bags, she hesitated. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "That day in my office, when your wife said what she said, you didn't seem surprised. You seemed almost relieved." "I was." "You were waiting for her to say it out loud, weren't you?" "I thought about that." "Yeah, I guess I was. Spent years wondering if I was imagining it, if I was being too sensitive. When she finally just admitted it, everything made sense." She nodded slowly. "I've been doing this for 15 years. That was one of the fastest decisions I've ever seen someone make. Sometimes the decision's already made. You're just waiting for the right moment to act on it. Are you doing okay now?" "Better than okay. Best I've been in a long time." She smiled, genuine this time. "Good. That's really good." She left, and I finished checking out. Drove home with groceries in the passenger seat, windows down, radio playing something I actually wanted to listen to. When I pulled into the driveway, the neighbor who'd helped with the garage was outside watering his lawn. He waved. I waved back. Inside, I put the groceries away and looked around. The house felt more like mine now. Had a few new things, a chair I'd wanted for years that she'd said didn't match. A sound system for the TV. Small stuff, but it mattered. My phone buzzed. Text from a coworker asking if I wanted to grab lunch tomorrow. I said yes. Another text came through. This one from the friend I'd met at the bar. "Fantasy football draft next week. You in?" I replied yes to that too. Life had a rhythm now. Work, gym, friends, projects around the house. Simple routine, no drama. Nobody questioning my choices or making me feel like I needed to be someone else. That evening, I was on the back porch with a beer when my phone rang. Unknown number. Almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "This is Laura," a woman's voice said. "We met at your ex-wife's office party 2 years ago." I vaguely remembered her. Quiet woman, worked in accounting. "I heard about the divorce," she continued. "And I know this might be weird, but I wanted to say I'm sorry about how things went down. She talked about you at work sometimes, and it wasn't fair. I appreciate that." Also, she paused. "If you're ever interested in getting coffee sometime, as friends, I'd like that. No pressure." I smiled. "Yeah, I'd like that too." We made plans for the following week and hung up. I sat there for a while after, beer getting warm in my hand, watching the sun set behind the fence I'd painted. Thought about the last few months. The therapy session, changing the locks, the arguments, the legal proceedings, all of it. Someone else might have handled it differently. Might have tried harder to save things, gone back to therapy, given her another chance. But I'd given her 6 years of chances. 6 years of trying to be enough for someone who'd already decided I wasn't. And the moment she said it out loud, the moment she confirmed what I'd suspected all along, I was done. No second guessing. No what ifs. Just done. I finished my beer, went inside, and started making dinner. Tomorrow I'd go to work, hit the gym, maybe call Laura and confirm those coffee plans. Life was simple now. Uncomplicated. Mine. And that was more than enough.
Our story has come to an end. If you've made it this far, how about subscribing to our channel? It helps us immensely. I've selected 2 other videos for you that I'm sure you'll enjoy. Feel free to click on them. I'll be waiting for you in the next story. See you soon.